Hello everybody, it's me here. And today we've regone. Now I'll be taking a look at another installment in the popular Goddess of series, where we explore some of the lesser known deities from various mythologies that are easily overlooked or forgotten. I should state for the record that when I say lesser known, I don't mean that these gods aren't important. A lot of them actually hold significant roles in their respective pantheons, and they definitely deserve to be talked about more. So let's jump right into it. And for those of you who might be new to the channel, welcome to my channel where we talk about mythology, folklore, and all things paranormal. So if you enjoy what you see, then make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos. So the first god on our list is, of course, Athena. Now, most people are familiar with Athena from Greek mythology. She was the goddess of wisdom, handicraft, the arts, justice, courage, inspiration, civilization, law and order, and strategic warfare. But did you know that there was an earlier Anatolian goddess whose name inspired the Greeks to create the myth of Athena? Her name was Atuna, and she was a major goddess in the Hittite pantheon. The Hittites were an ancient Indo-European people who lived in Anatolia, which is now modern-day Turkey. They were one of the first civilizations in the world, and they flourished between 1600 BC and 1200 BC in Hittite mythology. Atuna was the daughter of the sky god, Teshub, and the earth goddess Hannah. She was the sister of the storm god and weather god and the wife of the mountain god. As a goddess, she had many different aspects, but she was primarily associated with fertility, the moon, and magic. One of her main duties was to protect the king and the kingdom of Hitti from harm. In fact, she was considered to be the patron goddess of the Hittite Empire. It was believed that she gave the Hittite kings wisdom and strength, and that she helped them to defeat their enemies. The worship of Atuna spread throughout Anatolia and eventually reached Greece. The Greeks were so impressed by this foreign goddess that they created a completely new deity based off of her. The Greeks took Atuna's name and made it their own by calling her Athena. They also took many of her aspects and combined them with other goddesses in their pantheon. For example, Athena was the goddess of wisdom, just like Minos was the goddess of wisdom. And Athena's association with the owl, which was sacred to her, can be traced back to the Hittite goddess. Athena also had a temple in Athens, which was named after her, and the city became known as the birthplace of Athena. Now, moving on, let's take a look at another god from Anatolia, this time from the Hurrian pantheon. His name was Telepen, and he was a minor god who was often depicted as a lion-like creature. In Hurrian mythology, Telepinu was the son of the storm god Teshub and the goddess Hebet. He was the brother of the weather god and the husband of the goddess Nikkel. Although Telepinu was a minor deity, he played an important role in Hurrian religion. He was associated with the constellation Leo and was believed to have the ability to bring rain and fertility to the land. The Hurrians believed that Telepanu was very powerful and that he could even defeat the great dragon god Luviatar. In one myth, Telepinu and Luviatar were fighting over the body of a slain lion. When Telepinu used his claws to tear Luviatar's ear off, this myth shows the strength and ferocity of Telepinu as well as his connection to lions. It is possible that the Hurrian god Telepinu inspired the Greek god Ares. Both gods were associated with violence and war, and both were depicted as having lion-like features. However, this is only a theory, and there is no concrete evidence to support it. Moving on, let's take a look at another goddess from the Hurrian pantheon. Her name was Shushka, and she was one of the most important goddesses in Hurrian mythology. She was the wife of the storm god Teshub and the mother of the weather god. In Hurrian mythology, Shushka was associated with healing, fertility, and protection from evil. She was also believed to be a bringer of rain and was invoked in prayers for help during droughts. One of the most famous myths about Shushka tells the story of how she saved her husband Teshub from the evil dragon god Luviatar. In this myth, Luviatar tricked Teshub into going to a cave where he was trapped by rocks. However, Shushka came to the rescue and used her powers to break the rocks and free her husband. This myth shows the strength and power of Shushka, as well as her devotion to her husband. The worship of Shushka spread throughout the Near East, and she was eventually syncretized with other goddesses such as Anats and One of her temples was located in the city of Carchemish, which was in the Orontes River Valley. The goddess was also worshipped in Ugarit, where she was identified with the Canaanite goddess Anat. In Ugarit, Shushka was called Ishara, and she was said to be the daughter of El, the supreme god. She was also associated with the planet Venus and was believed to be a bringer of love and fertility. Now, let's move on to the next god on our list. His name was Humbaba, and he was a Mesopotamian deity who was associated with the cedar forest. He was a giant, many-horned monster with a human head and a lion's body. Humbaba was considered to be the guardian of the cedar forest, and he was very fierce and powerful. One of the most famous myths about Humbaba tells the story of how Gilgamesh and Enkidu went to the cedar forest to cut down trees. But they were warned not to do so because Humbaba was very protective of the forest. Despite the warning, Gilgamesh and Enkidu went ahead and entered the forest. And when Humbaba confronted them, they fought. The fight was long and hard, but ultimately, Gilgamesh and Enkidu were victorious. They killed Humbaba and cut down the cedar trees. This myth shows the strength and power of Humbaba, but it also shows his vulnerability. Even though he was a god, he was still capable of being killed. Another story about Humbaba tells the story of how he was defeated by the goddess Ishtar was in love with Gilgamesh, but when he rejected her advances, she became angry and decided to punish him. She sent a scorpion man named Humbaba to kill Gilgamesh, but the hero was able to defeat Humbaba as well. Although Humbaba was a minor god, he was still important in Mesopotamian mythology. He represented the wild forces of nature and the dangers that humans faced in the ancient world. He was also a symbol of the importance of respecting nature and the consequences of doing otherwise. Next up, we have a goddess named Lilith. Now, this is not the Lilith that you may be thinking of. There are multiple figures throughout mythology with this exact same name. And today, we are talking about the Mesopotamian goddess. Lilith was the goddess of night in Mesopotamian mythology. She was the wife of the god of the underworld and the mother of demons and monsters. In one myth, Lilith was described as having the wings of a bird and the body of a woman. Another myth describes her as being hairy and having the face of a dog. Lilith was a very mysterious and enigmatic goddess, and she was often associated with darkness and evil. However, she was also seen as a bringer of wisdom and was believed to have the ability to grant wishes. Like I said before, there are many goddesses with this exact same name, but the Mesopotamian goddess is the one that I find most interesting. I'm sure we will be covering other variants of Lilith in future installments of this series, but for today, I think that's enough about her. And finally, we have a god named Nergal in Mesopotamian mythology. Nergal was the god of the underworld. He was the son of the sky god An and the water goddess Ki. And he was the brother of the sun god Shamash and the moon god Sin. Nergal was a very powerful god, and he was feared by both the living and the dead. He was associated with death, disease, and destruction. But he was also seen as a bringer of justice and was believed to be able to protect the innocent from harm. One of the most famous myths about Nergal tells the story of how he went to the underworld and became its ruler. When Nergal arrived in the underworld, he was greeted by the goddess Ereshkigal, who was the ruler of the realm. Ereshkigal was very beautiful, and Nergal fell in love with her. However, she was already married to the demon king Kuar, and he was very jealous of Nergal. When Kuar found out about the two's affair, he became furious, and he challenged Nergal to a fight. Nergal was no match for Kuar, and he was beaten and banished from the underworld. Despite being banished, Nergal and Ereshkigal continued to meet in secret. And eventually, she became pregnant with his child. When Kuar found out about the pregnancy, he became enraged, and he demanded that Ereshkigal give him the child. However, she refused, and so Kuar banished her from the underworld. With Ereshkigal gone, Nergal took over as the ruler of the underworld. So there you have it. Another set of lesser-known gods from various mythologies. If you enjoyed this video, then please leave me a like and a comment down below, letting me know what you thought. Also, if you haven't already, then please consider subscribing so you don't miss any new videos. I'll see you guys next time.